I'm a 31-year-old woman, and until recently I thought my family was close-knit, if a little too traditional. Growing up, my mom was always the center of our family. She's one of those women who believes a perfect life involves marriage, kids, and Sunday dinners where the grandkids run around. My dad's quieter, supportive, but never really one to challenge her. I'm the eldest of three. My brother Adam is 29, easygoing and likes to stay out of drama, and my sister Hannah, 27, has always been the peacemaker. Our family gatherings usually had the same rhythm: catch up, eat too much, and endure my mom's not-so-subtle questions about when I'd settle down. For years, I just brushed it off. I've been focused on my career, traveling, and building a life that feels fulfilling to me. Marriage and kids were never part of the plan, but I hadn't outright said it until a few months ago. It started at a casual family dinner. My mom, in her usual way, brought up how time is ticking for me. I just returned from a trip to Europe, and she asked if I'd met anyone special. When I told her I wasn't looking for a relationship right now, she launched into her usual speech about how I'd regret it later. This time, though, I decided to stop dancing around the subject. I told her plainly that I didn't want kids, ever. The silence was deafening. My mom put down her fork and stared at me like I'd just announced I was moving to Mars. Then came the outburst. She called it selfish and said I'd regret it when I was older and lonely. My dad kept his head down, cutting his food like he hadn't heard a thing. Adam and Hannah exchanged looks but didn't say much, probably hoping it would blow over. I tried to explain my reasons, how I love my freedom, how I'm financially stable, and how I've just never felt that pull toward motherhood. But my mom wasn't having it. She started throwing around phrases like family duty and carrying on the legacy. At one point, she said it was my responsibility as the eldest. That's when I realized this wasn't just a difference of opinion for her, it was a full-blown betrayal. The weeks after that dinner were tense. My mom didn't bring it up directly again, but she didn't have to. She'd drop comments like, "You'll change your mind when you meet the right person," or "You're just saying that because you're too focused on work." She'd sigh dramatically whenever I mentioned a trip or something exciting about my career, saying, "It's a shame you won't have anyone to share it with." I thought Thanksgiving might be a chance to reset, but instead it turned into round two. During dinner, my mom brought up how much she was looking forward to having grandkids one day. She turned to me and said, "But I guess I can't count on everyone to make that happen." The room went dead silent. I told her I didn't appreciate the comment and asked her to drop the subject. That's when she accused me of ruining the family legacy. I told her firmly that it was my life and my choice, and I wasn't going to apologize for it. She got quiet but gave me that look, like I'd stabbed her in the heart. After dinner, she pulled me aside and told me she couldn't understand how I could reject everything she worked so hard to build. She said if I didn't change my mind, she'd have no choice but to reconsider my place in the family. It got worse from there. A few days later, she called a family meeting. I thought maybe she wanted to clear the air, but it turned into her doubling down on everything she'd said. She told me I was betraying her and the family and that I'd regret it when I was old and alone. Adam spoke up, saying it was my life and my decision, but Hannah surprised me. She said she understood my mom's point and didn't want to be the only one left to carry on the family name. Then came the gossip. I started getting calls from aunts and cousins, asking why I was giving up on the family. It didn't take much to figure out my mom had been talking. The final straw was when she posted a vague status on Facebook about being betrayed by her own blood. She didn't name me, but everyone in the family knew exactly who she was talking about. By then, I was done. I told her that if she couldn't respect my boundaries, I'd have to start limiting contact. She responded with a dramatic, "If you cut me out of your life, don't expect me to keep you in mine." I could feel the lines being drawn, and it was clear this wasn't going to blow over. She wasn't going to let this go, and I wasn't going to back down. What started as a personal decision had turned into a family war, and I knew things were about to escalate even further. Update 1. After my mom's Facebook post, I knew things would escalate, but I wasn't prepared for how far she'd go. A few days later, she called and insisted on meeting me for coffee. She sounded calm, almost too calm, so I agreed, hoping she might be ready to have a real conversation. When I arrived, she was already seated, arms crossed. She started by saying she'd given me enough time to reconsider my childish decision and that she couldn't accept having a daughter who turned her back on family values. Then she said something that hit like a punch. If I wasn't willing to change my mind, I wasn't part of the family anymore. She said I'd made my choice, and she had no other option but to protect the family from selfishness. I was stunned. I asked if she was really willing to cut me out of her life over this, and she didn't hesitate. She said she couldn't support someone who was destroying everything she built. That was it for me. I stood up and walked out, leaving her sitting there. I didn't look back, but my hands were shaking as I left. After that, I stopped going to family events. I couldn't face the constant judgment and tension. Adam texted me later that week, saying he thought mom was being unreasonable, and he'd support me no matter what. But Hannah's response was different. She called and said she understood why mom was upset. She didn't outright tell me to apologize, but she made it clear she thought I was being stubborn. Then I found out through Adam that my mom had taken another step to cement her disowning me. She'd removed me from the family trust and inheritance. Adam overheard her talking about it with my dad one evening, saying that ungrateful children don't deserve family blessings. My dad, as usual, stayed quiet, though Adam said he looked upset. That hurt, but it wasn't about the money. It was the final confirmation that she was done with me unless I gave in. I decided to go no contact after that. I blocked her number and muted her on social media, which felt like a small relief. But the peace didn't last long. A few days later, I started hearing from cousins and aunts, asking what had happened. Apparently, my mom had been telling everyone that I'd abandoned the family and that she was heartbroken. One cousin even told me she'd said I was selfish beyond repair and would regret this for the rest of my life. I buried myself in work to avoid thinking about it too much, but it was hard. My productivity took a hit, and I found myself replaying the last few weeks in my head constantly. Adam came over one evening with wine and takeout, telling me he thought the whole situation was ridiculous. He said mom was being manipulative and that I had every right to live my life the way I wanted. Having him in my corner made things a little easier. Still, the weight of it all was too much, so I started therapy. My therapist was great. She helped me untangle the guilt and showed me that I wasn't wrong for setting boundaries. She also pointed out how much of my mom's behavior was about control, not love. That hit me hard, but it also gave me clarity. As painful as everything was, there was a strange sense of freedom in it too. I no longer felt like I had to justify my choices to her. For the first time, I was living my life without constantly worrying about her approval. The drama didn't end there, though. My aunt called me one evening, saying she thought I should fix things with my mom before it was too late. She told me how mom had been crying at family dinners, saying she'd lost her eldest child. I calmly told her I wasn't the one who ended the relationship. If mom wanted to make amends, it was up to her to apologize and respect my decisions. My aunt didn't like that answer, but I wasn't going to budge. Things hit a new low when my mom staged a dramatic family dinner, complete with tears and speeches about how she was mourning the loss of her daughter. She even set an empty chair at the table as some kind of symbolic gesture. Adam told me about it afterward, saying it was one of the most uncomfortable meals he'd ever been to. He confronted her, telling her that her behavior was what was driving the family apart, not me. She brushed him off, saying he didn't understand a mother's pain. Or realizing how far she was willing to go made something click for me. I wasn't going to give in to emotional manipulation anymore. My mom wanted control, but I wasn't going to let her have it. I decided then and there that I'd stick to my boundaries no matter how much drama she created. Update 2. After walking out of that disastrous coffee meeting with my mom, I hoped the silence that followed would last. It was a long stretch of nothing, no calls, no messages, and no family ambushes. I focused on my work and therapy, thinking the worst was behind me. Months passed, and for a brief moment, it felt like the storm had finally passed. But then, out of nowhere, my mom reached out. She sent a message saying she was ready to talk. It wasn't long, and it definitely wasn't an apology. She said something about wanting to move forward as a family, and how she missed the way things used to be. My therapist had been helping me prepare for something like this, and her advice was clear. Any contact needed firm boundaries from the start. I replied cautiously, making it clear that I wouldn't tolerate any discussion about my child-free decision. If she wanted to talk, it had to be about rebuilding trust, not rehashing old arguments. Her response was polite, almost too polite. She wrote that she just wanted what's best for me and hoped we could get past everything. It felt like she was avoiding taking responsibility for the things she'd said and done, but I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt just this once. We set up a phone call. It started off fine. She asked about my work, my travels, and even mentioned a recipe she wanted to share. For a moment, I thought maybe she was serious about mending things. But then, as casually as if she were commenting on the weather, she slipped in a comment about how I was still young and might change my mind about kids someday. I froze. I reminded her that this topic was off limits. She tried to backpedal, saying she was just making conversation, but I could hear the edge in her voice. It was clear she hadn't changed at all. I told her I couldn't keep having the same fight and ended the call. Later that evening, Adam came over to check on me. He'd heard from Hannah that our mom was devastated because I'd hung up on her. Adam wasn't surprised. He said mom had been venting to Hannah about me ever since the no-contact period began. He reassured me that I'd done the right thing, but it didn't make it any less exhausting. The next day, Hannah called me. She said mom was trying to fix things and that I was being stubborn by not meeting her halfway. She didn't outright blame me, but her tone made it clear she thought I was at fault for the ongoing tension. She kept saying it wasn't fair to put all the pressure on mom, as if I was the one keeping the fight alive. Not long after, my mom was back to her usual tricks. She posted a cryptic status on Facebook about the importance of family and how some people take their blessings for granted. She didn't name me directly, but the timing was obvious. A few of her friends and relatives chimed in with supportive comments, and one even wrote something like, "It's hard when your own kids turn their back on you." I ignored it, but the drama felt suffocating. The stress started to bleed into my work life. I found myself zoning out during meetings, replaying conversations with my mom in my head. I missed a couple of deadlines, which wasn't like me, and even my boss noticed I wasn't fully present. I tried to shake it off, but the weight of everything was hard to ignore. A few days later, my dad showed up at my apartment. He looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be there, but he told me he was sorry for everything that had happened. He said he felt trapped, caught between me and mom, and that he didn't know how to make things right. He admitted he couldn't stand up to her because it would only make things worse at home. I appreciated the visit, but his hands-off approach was as frustrating as ever. The next blow came via text. My mom sent me a message saying that unless I changed my mind, I'd be permanently removed from her will. At this point, I wasn't even surprised. I sent a short reply, telling her I didn't care about the money and just wanted peace. She didn't respond. For a while after that, it seemed like she'd finally given up. But Adam told me she was still bad-mouthing me to the extended family. My aunt called me, urging me to be the bigger person and reach out to mom. I told her the same thing I'd been telling everyone. Any relationship with mom would require genuine change and respect for my boundaries. It felt like talking to a wall. That's when I realized something important. My mom wasn't going to change unless she wanted to, and no amount of effort from me would make a difference. She was too focused on control and appearances to truly listen. I decided then and there to stop engaging. I wouldn't respond to any more dramatic messages or social media posts. If she wanted to fix things, she'd have to prove it with her actions, not her words. Update 3. Not long after I decided to stop engaging with my mom, I got an unexpected knock on my door. It was my aunt and uncle, who live about 45 minutes away. I hadn't seen them since before the no-contact period started, so I was surprised to see them unannounced. They made themselves comfortable on my couch, and and it didn't take long for them to get to the point. They'd come to tell me I needed to fix things with my mom for the sake of the family. My aunt talked about how much my mom was hurting and how the ongoing feud was tearing everyone apart. My uncle chimed in, saying it was my responsibility as the eldest to step up and make peace. I stayed calm and explained that I wasn't the one who ended the relationship. My mom had disowned me. I told them I wasn't willing to reopen the door unless she could respect my boundaries, but they didn't seem to get it. They left after about an hour, clearly frustrated that I wasn't budging. A few days later, Adam dropped by with some news. Apparently, my mom had been complaining about money troubles to him and Hannah. Since cutting me out of the trust, she'd made some poor financial decisions and was now worried about maintaining the family home. Adam said she'd hinted at wanting him and Hannah to step up to help cover expenses. He wasn't happy about it, but he didn't want to escalate things by refusing outright. I wasn't surprised. This was exactly the kind of thing I'd been trying to avoid. Meanwhile, Hannah's resentment toward me was becoming more obvious. She'd been calling Adam frequently, venting about how she was now the only responsible child left to deal with our parents. She even sent me a text, saying she was tired of carrying all the weight and that I needed to stop being so selfish. I didn't respond. Then, out of the blue, my mom sent me another message. This one was dripping with passive aggression. She wrote about how lonely she was and how she wanted to reconcile, but it was clear she hadn't changed her stance. She claimed she was willing to forgive me if I could come to my senses and put the family first. It wasn't an apology. It was another attempt to manipulate me. I didn't reply. At my next therapy session, I brought up the message. My therapist told me to focus on finding internal closure instead of waiting for my mom to take accountability. She said expecting genuine change from someone who refuses to see their faults would only lead to more frustration. It was solid advice, and I started working on letting go of the hope that things would ever be different. Adam, on the other hand, was still trying to mediate. He told me he'd confronted our mom about her behavior, saying the family couldn't move forward until she took responsibility for how she'd treated me. But her response was predictable. She dismissed him, saying he didn't understand a mother's pain and that I was the one causing the rift. He was frustrated but admitted he didn't know how to get through to her. Then came the unexpected twist. One of my cousins, who I hadn't spoken to in months, posted on Facebook. She wrote a long post defending me, calling out my mom's behavior, and saying it was unfair for anyone to expect me to fix something I didn't break. The post blew up within our extended family. Some relatives praised her for speaking up, while others sided with my mom, saying the situation shouldn't have been made public. The backlash must have been too much for my mom to handle because she temporarily deactivated her social media accounts. Adam told me she was furious about the post and blamed me for turning the family against her, even though I had nothing to do with it. Not long after, Hannah called again, this time with an ultimatum. She accused me of causing unnecessary drama and demanded I apologize to the family. She said it was time to end this childish feud and stop making things harder for everyone. I calmly told her I wasn't going to apologize for setting boundaries or for my life choices. She hung up on me. The real surprise came during a family Zoom call that Adam convinced me to join. My dad, who had been silent for most of this saga, finally spoke up. He admitted that my mom's actions were the reason I'd pulled away and that her obsession with control had pushed me out. Hearing him say that was validating, even though I knew he still wouldn't take any meaningful action to back me up. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't carrying the weight of this alone. I resolved to keep my boundaries firm. My mom's attempts to manipulate me, guilt me, or paint herself as the victim weren't going to work anymore. I was done sacrificing my peace to appease her ego. This was the clarity I needed to move forward, with or without her. Update 4. Adam came by one evening with updates I'd been half expecting. Our mom's financial troubles had gotten worse. Apparently, she'd been venting to both him and Hannah, hinting at how hard it was to maintain the family home. What I didn't see coming was that she outright asked them for financial help. She hadn't come to me, of course she'd cut me out entirely, but she didn't hesitate to guilt Adam and Hannah about how they owed it to the family. Adam wasn't thrilled, but Hannah was taking it personally. She'd been calling me constantly, leaving messages about how I was abandoning my responsibilities. I ignored most of them, but when she started accusing me of putting all the burden on her, I finally replied. I told her flat out that I wasn't getting involved. Mom had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. That didn't sit well with Hannah. A few days later, she showed up at my door, furious. She said I was being selfish, that I was leaving her and Adam to deal with everything while I sat back and watched. I stayed calm, repeating what I'd told her in the messages. Mom's choices were her own, and I wasn't going to compromise my boundaries to fix a mess I didn't create. Hannah stormed off, slamming the door behind her. Not long after, my dad called. He rarely reached out on his own, so I was surprised to see his name on my phone. When I picked up, he started by apologizing for not stepping in sooner. He admitted he felt trapped. Mom had all the control financially, and he didn't want to rock the boat at home. He said he understood why I'd distanced myself and hoped I wouldn't hold his inaction against him. It was the most honest conversation we'd had in years, but it didn't change much. He still wasn't willing to stand up to her. Then came the ambush. Hannah convinced me to come to a family gathering, saying it was just a casual dinner and that everyone needed a break from the tension. I should have known better. As soon as I walked in, I could feel the tension in the air. Mom was sitting at the head of the table, clearly ready for a showdown. It didn't take long for the conversation to turn. Mom started talking about how the family had fallen apart and how everything would be better if I just came back into the fold. She framed it as a plea for reconciliation, but it was clear she wanted me to apologize for everything. I stayed calm and told her the same thing I'd been saying for months. I wasn't going to apologize for my life choices, and I wasn't going to re-engage unless she could respect my boundaries. That's when Hannah snapped. She accused me of being cold and selfish, saying I'd caused nothing but drama since deciding to cut everyone off. She stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Adam stepped in, raising his voice for the first time. He told Mom that her obsession with control was the real issue and that she needed to stop blaming me for everything. Mom didn't take it well. She stood up, tears streaming down her face, and announced that I had ruined Christmas before leaving the room. The aftermath was just as chaotic. Extended family members started weighing in, some siding with me and others with Mom. Adam later told me that some relatives had been calling him, asking why I couldn't just apologize and make things right. Others, including the cousin who defended me on Facebook, reached out to offer their support. In therapy, I unpacked everything that had happened. My therapist pointed out that my mom's behavior was rooted in a fear of losing relevance and control. It didn't excuse her actions, but it helped me understand why she was so unwilling to let go. That realization made me more determined than ever to maintain my boundaries. Hannah, meanwhile, wasn't speaking to me. Every attempt I made to check in with her was met with silence. Adam said she was feeling overwhelmed, but she refused to admit it. She'd taken on the role of the responsible child, and she resented me for stepping away. Mom's desperation started to show. She sent me a long message, accusing me of being heartless and selfish. It was the same old story, and I didn't bother replying. Instead, I focused on the people who were supporting me. Adam came by again, saying he was considering distancing himself from Mom too. He'd been her sounding board for months, and he was tired of the constant manipulation. That conversation was a turning point for me. For the first time, I realized I wasn't mourning the relationship with my mom anymore. The guilt and sadness that had weighed on me for so long were gone, replaced by a sense of peace. I knew I'd done everything I could to maintain my boundaries while still being open to reconciliation, and that was enough. Moving forward, I was determined to protect my peace, no matter what came next. Update 5. Not long after the Christmas drama, Adam called me with news I didn't expect. Mom had been hospitalized briefly due to stress-related health issues. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was serious enough to shake up the family. Adam had visited her and said she looked pale and tired, but it hadn't stopped her from talking about how much everything was weighing on her. Soon after, Hannah called, urging me to visit Mom. She said this was a wake-up call, and that I needed to put the past aside for the sake of the family. I listened but stayed firm. I wasn't going to break my boundaries out of guilt. Mom's health might have been affected by stress, but I wasn't responsible for her choices. I told Hannah I wouldn't be going to the hospital, which only made her more frustrated. Adam, meanwhile, was reaching his breaking point. He'd spent hours at the hospital listening to Mom blame her stress on family disloyalty. When she started pressuring him to help fix things with me, he finally snapped. He told her that her obsession with control was what had driven me away and warned that if she didn't take a hard look at herself and seek therapy, she would lose both of us for good. Mom didn't take it well. Adam said she cried and accused him of turning against her, but he didn't back down. He left the hospital feeling more certain than ever that things couldn't continue as they were. Hannah, on the other hand, doubled down. She accused both Adam and me of abandoning the family. She said we were making things harder for everyone, and that Mom wouldn't be in this state if we'd just been more understanding. Adam and I didn't argue with her, but it was clear the family rift was only getting wider. Our dad stayed neutral as always. He visited Mom in the hospital, told Adam he wished things were different, and said he hoped we'd find a way to work things out. He still wouldn't take a strong stance, which was frustrating but not surprising. A week later, Mom was discharged. That's when she reached out to me directly. Her tone was different this time, calmer, almost apologetic. She said she was willing to consider therapy and wanted to work on repairing our relationship. For a moment, I thought maybe she was serious about changing. But given everything that had happened, I couldn't let my guard down. I replied cautiously, saying I appreciated her willingness to try, but needed to see consistent actions before re-engaging. Adam agreed with my decision to wait and see. He'd been distancing himself more and more, refusing to take her calls unless she was willing to talk about something other than family drama. Meanwhile, Hannah was still trying to hold everything together. With both of us stepping back, the full weight of Mom's demands was falling on her. Adam said she was starting to sound overwhelmed, but she wouldn't admit it. I kept focusing on therapy, which was helping me work through the lingering guilt. My therapist encouraged me to prioritize my own well-being and let go of the idea that I could fix my family's dysfunction. It was freeing to realize that I didn't have to carry the burden anymore. Around the same time, I received a major promotion at work. It felt like a validation of everything I'd been working toward, proof that stepping away from the chaos had allowed me to thrive. For the first time in years, I felt like I was fully in control of my life. Adam, too, made a big decision. After months of trying to mediate, he officially went no contact with Mom. He told me he couldn't keep dealing with the constant guilt trips and manipulation. That left Hannah as the only child still actively communicating with her. Adam and I both felt bad for her, but knew she had to set her own boundaries. Mom's next move was predictable. She sent me a long, emotional message begging for a family reunion. She talked about how much she missed the way things used to be, and how she just wanted us all to be together again. I didn't reply. Her words felt hollow without any real effort to change behind them. Then out of nowhere, Hannah called me. She sounded exhausted and admitted she was feeling overwhelmed. She said she didn't know how much longer she could keep carrying everything on her own. I listened and offered support, but gently redirected her to think about setting boundaries with Mom. It wasn't an easy conversation, but it felt like a step in the right direction. Finally, I decided to write a letter to Mom. It wasn't an olive branch. It was a way to put my feelings into words and set clear terms for any future relationship. I explained why I'd made the choices I had, and emphasized that any reconciliation would need to be built on respect and healthier communication. I didn't know if she'd truly hear me, but it felt good to put everything out there. Now I'm focused on moving forward. I surrounded myself with supportive friends and chosen family who respect me for who I am. The weight of the past is finally lifting, and for the first time, I feel free from the toxic dynamic that held me back for so long. It's not the ending I hoped for, but it's the one I needed.